Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest, Gaby Natale, and she's here today to share with us her new book, The Virtuous Circle. Restore your confidence, bounce back, and emerge stronger. Now, many of you know Gaby. She's an Argentine-Italian-American journalist, author, entrepreneur, host, and executive producer of the TV program Super Latina. Gaby has won 3 Daytime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Daytime Talent in Spanish Language Program and Outstanding Entertainment Program in Spanish. She's one of the few women in the entertainment industry who owns not only the rights to her TV show, but also to her television studio. So let's welcome to the show, Gaby Natale.
Hello, Marianne. Hello, people. How are you doing? It's a new day. It's a new year. We made it through 2020, through one pivotal year, 1 year we will never forget. And there's so many of us ready for a reset, ready for a restart, ready to realign our priorities. So what better way to start the year than connecting with each other, Marianne?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't think of a better way. And then to start with your book on top of it. My goodness, I found your book to be so empowering. And I have to ask, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, Marianne, and this is something we can share. Interviewing people transform you. And I am a journalist. I am a 3-time Emmy Award winning journalist, and I have interviewed super achievers, successful underdogs, trailblazers, the best of the best for about 15 years of my life. The past 15 years of my life was talking to these people. They are all different. They come from all different walks of life. Some are artists, some are athletes, some are business people, some are scientists. But one day I sat down and I asked myself, okay, what do they all have in common? Different professions, different dreams, but what are the patterns? What is the common thread that unites all these people who reach the top of their field? And that's what I call the virtuous circle, which is it's a system of 7 archetypes that I've identified in them, but they are dormant. They live inside all of us. And it's something that it's our work to nurture them. It's our work to find out what this virtuous circle looks like for all of us, because these 7 energies, these 7 archetypes, it's a dreamer that lives in us, and it's the architect, the ones that plans, or maybe it's the warrior, the ones that persevere inside of us. It's 7 different archetypes that we all have, and we have to identify which ones are the strongest ones in ourselves and which ones are the ones, Marianne, we have to work better at. For example, some people tell me, Gaby, I've seen the virtuous circle. I've seen the 7 archetypes. I'm really good at dreaming, so I'm a good dreamer. I'm really good at planning. I'm a great architect. But when it comes to execution, I'm a disaster. I never execute. So the maker in me is the one that I have to nurture more, is the one that I have to work the most at.
You've really broken it down in a way that makes it so easy for people. And I think this is why so many people are resonating with this book and why it's flying off the shelves, is because people are looking at this going, gosh, you know what? We all survived 2020. Now what? How am I going to redirect my life, or how am I going to recreate what I'm doing? And you really give a roadmap for people to figure out, okay, how do I do that?
Absolutely, because I think there's never been, at least in our lifetime, I think there will never be a time, a year like the beginning of 2021. Globally, so many people who are shifting their priorities, asking themselves what they want to do next. What is my right next steps? What was meaningful for me before? What is going to be meaningful for me now? What is the reset? What is the restart? And I am a person, I think that being an immigrant, being a small business owner, being somebody who has experienced unemployment for about 2 years, years in the beginning of my career. There's so many things about this book and this story that are so much more relevant right now than when I originally wrote it a couple of years ago. And I fought really hard to have this book in the world. And the timing, when you want a certain timing and you're pushing that timing and things happen in a different timeline, and then you realize that the timeline that was prepared for this project was so much grander and so much greater than the one I had in mind in the beginning, because there's never been such a need for a message like the virtuous circle like right now.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. I mean, there's so many people. I mean, we look at the unemployment rates and people having to really kind of redefine who they are and what brings their life meaning and purpose. And you help people kind of narrow that down with, the 7 steps that you have outlined, the archetypes, so that people can really kind of understand, okay, what am I passionate about? Where do I want to go with my life?
Yes, and I'm going to take just a brief minute, just a few seconds to kind of actually explain the 7 archetypes, because there's people listening and maybe they are planning something, maybe they are dreaming something. So many people who are pivoting in their lives right now. So even if they are not reading the book right now, I want for them to have these tools. So everybody listening, think about this thing, this project, this dream that you have right here, right now in your mind. And what I'm going to share with you is what I've learned from the best of the best. I have interviewed people from all walks of life. If they are authors, I've interviewed the bestsellers. From Deepak Chopra to Isabel Allende, which is the Latina who sold most books in the planet. If it's a musician, I've talked to Carlos Santana. Whoever is the best of the best, I have interviewed in different fields. And the virtuous circle is at the core of what I found is the commonalities between all of them. So hang in there with me. Imagine there's a circle, and this circle has 7 little pieces, like a pizza. Imagine it's a pizza with 7 slices. In the middle, it's you. And each one of these pieces that I'm going to mention is a part of the circle. So the first archetype is what I call the dreamer. The dreamer is the one in us that visualizes that dream. Whatever you want to do, before you did it, you had to visualize it. You had to have it in your mind. The second one is the architect. The architect in you use it every day, Marianne. We use the architect to coordinate this call. We're using the architect to plan our budget. We use the architect to plan our meals. Every day we're using the architect, the one in us that plans. The third one is the maker, the one that executes. And that's where so many people get stuck. They dream, they plan, but they never execute. So if that is a problem for you, you have to work harder on your maker. Now, when you execute, what you're going to have, people, is hits and misses. So some things you're going to do and are going to be great. Some others are going to be mistakes. We're human. If you're intelligent, you're going to learn and you're going to become the next one, which is the apprentice. The apprentice in all of us, Marianne, is the one that perfects our craft, because nobody who has reached the top has done so but being mediocre at what they did. So when you become really good at what you do, I always like to joke, what happens when you become super good at what you do? Well, sometimes what happens is that nothing happens. Still, people don't pay attention to you. So you need the next one, which is the warrior, the one that is going to help you persevere through tough times. And when the knowledge you have from the apprentice and the perseverance from the warrior meet an opportunity, because in our lives, sooner or later, we come across opportunities, Marianne, that is your moment of achievement, and you become the champion. And what I ask every champion is, what are you using your achievements for, my dear champion? If you're using your achievements for something greater than yourself, if you're using your achievements for something that is going to be making this world a better place, then you're going to inspire and you're going to become the ultimate, the last one, which is the leader. And this is called, Marianne, the virtuous circle, because with your next idea, with your next project, where do we go? Back to the beginning, back to being a dreamer, and the wheel of life keeps turning. So that's why it's called the virtuous circle.
Thank you so much for breaking that down for us. I just love how that all comes together, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, when we look at this, you really talk a lot about like pushing boundaries and moving beyond those. You're doing that every day in your life. How would you inspire people to do that in their own lives? I know this book does it so well.
Yes, I think one of the things that for me is one of the most important ones is always thinking about our inner voice over outer noise. Marianne, there's always something in our lives that some people use to have low expectations about who we are. I know in my case, for example, that when I speak because I have an accent, people mistakenly assume that I am uneducated only because English happens to be my second language. So I know that is something that some people can have in their mind when I speak. For some other person, it can be their age. They are self-aware of their age. It can be their size. It can be the color of their skin. It can be so many things. We all have, somebody told me like 2 days ago, I have a very deep voice. For somebody, it's wonderful. For some other, it's something that they are self-aware of. So we all have one or many things that sometimes are thought of as defects. And I believe those things that sometimes are perceived as defects, we can make them and turn them into our trademark. We can make them into something that we cherish, because I believe our own uniqueness is our gift to the world. And I do believe in breaking barriers. For me, for example, it was very important to be the narrator of my own audiobook. Because when you go to Audible or to anywhere where you find audiobooks, what you're going to realize is that you never find narrators who sound like me, especially because I want to be so intentional that this is a book in the leadership space. And when you only have native speakers narrating the books, the message you're sending to the world is that only people who are native speakers are leaders. And we know that leaders come in all shapes, in all sizes, in all ages, and they can sound very different one from another one. So that was a personal goal for me, to be the narrator of my own book. It's so much more work, Marianne. I have to spend so much time in that recording studio. But you know what? It's worth it. I remember when I did my TED Talk, Pioneer, How to Be What You Can't See, there was a little girl who came when I finished doing the speech and hugged me and told me she had never heard someone who sounded like me on a stage, and that she was an immigrant as well and a student, that she never went to the front of her class to present because she was afraid somebody would make fun of her. And that just seeing somebody like her or hearing somebody like her made the whole difference. And that's why I feel it's so important that we all have to pioneer in our own ways. We all have to break barriers in our own ways.
Oh my God, what a touching story. I love that. And I so support you and love what you're doing with your work. And congratulations, by the way, because while you are in HarperCollins leadership group, you are also the first Hispanic author to join it. And I looked at that, I was like, first Hispanic author? I mean, my goodness, and I can see why your book is among that grouping. And here you go again, breaking those glass ceilings and moving forward. And I just applaud you with that.
Thank you very much. But I think I always say something, and that is that when we pioneer, we move the world forward. because we still have a lot of work to do, whether you don't have to be a Hispanic, whether you're a woman, a Hispanic from any community, or maybe you have an idea inside your organization and you could be making a difference, but you are afraid to pioneer, you're afraid to share it. And it does take an extra leap of faith. It does take an extra courage. But at the same time, I feel what's at stake, it's so important. It's so much bigger than ourselves that we really have to do it. And that's why I encourage everyone, to be courageous this year. If there's anything we have learned is that people who believed and companies who believed or organizations who believed they had the roadmap because they were big or the roadmap because they had decades in business, many of them are no longer here. So this is a time to be unconventional. This is a time to be brave. This is a time to be nonconformist. This is a time for everybody that I call my rebel dreamers, the people who see beyond the visible, because I think we're starting a new chapter, not just individually, but collectively. There's so many things that are starting to begin right now that I feel will open doors for new opportunities, new ways of thinking, new voices that are coming to the forefront, new ways of doing business, new ways of thinking. So it's a moment where we have to allow ourselves to be more free than we used to be before, in our thoughts, in our actions, in our ideas, in everything.
And what a beautiful world it would be if we all could be that authentic self that you are, telling people, hey, you can do this, you can be this. And you touched on something that I would love for you to kind of expand on, because I know in your book, you talk about the art of believing than seeing. So what do you mean by that?
What I mean is that if you want to pioneer, if you want to bring something to this world, whether that is a project, an idea, art, whatever, there's so many people who had to see first in their minds whatever they wanted to achieve, because they could not see it in the world. And so that's why I'm so intentional on seeing beyond the visible, on not jumping to permanent conclusions based on temporary circumstances. Because sometimes we look around, Marianne, our temporary circumstances, the things that surround us in a certain moment or a certain time, and then we jump to permanent conclusions. So I've been unemployed for 2 years, in the beginning of my career. And I was this close, so close to prematurely giving up on my dream of working in media, only because of this temporary circumstance of being unemployed. And I was 23 years old at the time. And imagine if I had jumped to these permanent conclusions of, I'm not good enough to make it in the media world. I'm not good enough to have my space in this profession that I love so much. Everything that happened afterwards, I would have missed it because I was focused so much in the here and the now and the circumstances that surrounded me at a particular moment and time. And that's why I want to emphasize this so much, because there may be circumstances that are surrounding people listening to us right here, right now, that are not the ideal circumstances. But if they jump to permanent conclusions, if they give up on their dreams, they might be giving up prematurely on something that time can prove it's within their reach. So that's why I feel that we have to take that leap of faith, step into the unknown, and see beyond the visible.
I love that. And you know what? And you're just a living example of how well that works and how that can be used in someone's life. I mean, you look at just, how you're inspiring millions of women and young girls to be able to speak their authentic voice in a way that works for them. And I just love that you do that because, the fact that, before everyone's like, well, you have to conform, you have to sound like this, you have to present like this. And we lose so much of our individuality when we do that.
Yes, and also I am somebody who is moved by truth. This quarantine I have been watching. This is a non-related thing, but this quarantine I have been binge watching nonstop RuPaul Drag Race. If you're not familiar with the show, this is a show about drag queens and their competition to become the best drag queen they can be, and that's in the surface. If you see more layers beyond that show, what you're looking for is that it's the search of them to liberate themselves from conforming. It's the journey of the hero. It's the journey of somebody who is looking for their own authentic self, their own authentic voice, and they want to share it with the world. And this show moved me so much because some people think it's only a show for a certain community, but the topics they talk about of living authentically in the world, of finding your own voice, are so universal, because you don't need to be a drag queen to ask yourself, how do I want to live this life? What do I want? How am I going to express myself? And so many people, like these drag queens, know that they have so many colors. They have so much glitter. They have so much shine inside of their hearts, but they are living a life that is gray. They are living a life that is black and white. And the moment we realize there's nothing wrong with living in Technicolor, there's nothing wrong with that glittery self, or that authentic self, or that colorful self that lives inside of you. First, it's such a relief when you start living from that place, because you're living from a place of truth, whatever that means in your own world. And the second one is, I always say that when you open yourself up to the world opens itself up to you. When you open yourself up to the world opens itself up to you. And what I mean by that is, when you start opening to new opportunities and new possibilities, you are going to see that your world expands and that life will surprise you. Marianne, I started creative content and doing my show out of a carpet warehouse in West Texas. And I am an immigrant who came here to the United States with no friends, no family. I started from zero. And who could have thought that this project, that this idea, this crazy delusional project that's starting out of a carpet warehouse in West Texas will become nationally syndicated and will win 3 national Emmys and will beat CNN, NBC. So, these are the things that I like to mention, because when you open yourself up to new possibilities, when you open yourself up to the world, really life surprises you. And that's why I say the world opens itself up back to you.
Oh my gosh, those are words to live by. I'm going to write that down and post it on my mirror so I see it every morning, because it's that important. I mean, when you look at that, just being able to be your authentic self and give yourself that permission to be able to step out in the world in your unique way. I really felt your book helps people be able to shed those layers to do that. And it was just so profound. And it has me thinking, here you are, you've won 3 Emmys, you're a TV personality, best-selling author. I mean, you could have done anything you want to do and keep doing. And I'm sure you've got a list because you keep breaking these glass ceilings. What initially inspired you to decide, hey, I'm going to follow that inspirational career and share this information with other people?
I feel like we have, whatever we learn, and that's when in the virtuous circle, I ask what I call champions, what are you doing with your achievements? So whatever your achievements are, if you're listening and you graduated from something, you learned something, a skill, or there's some goal that you fulfilled. That's why I ask champion, what are you doing with your achievements? Because I do feel we have, in a way, I don't want to call it an obligation, because I don't want to force an obligation onto everyone, but I do feel we have a responsibility to serve and to share whatever we have learned, whatever much or whatever little we have learned, to everyone, to pass the baton, because I've had in my life, and I think if we look back, we all had at some point in our lives people who have helped us, who had nothing to win from that help they provided for us, who were really generous, truly generous with their help. And I've been very fortunate to come across people who helped me. And at that moment, I was just starting. There was nothing for them to profit on. There was no ultimate intentionality that would benefit them, other than just being generous. And I came across people like that in my life many times. And I think that if you happen to be in a position that you can help, and that doesn't mean that you have to be the CEO of a company or the billionaire. Whatever you have right here, right now, can be useful for somebody else. Whatever you've learned can be useful for somebody else at whatever stage you are in your journey. And that's why I feel we all have, in a way, I don't want to call it an obligation, but yes, we do have a responsibility of sharing what we know.
Well, thank you for sharing your brilliant light with us. My goodness. I mean, you've really helped, I think, so many people and continue to help people, especially with your book and how to move forward and how to have really a life that they're feeling fulfilled with, regardless what that looks like. Because, I mean, we each have our own separate goals and paths. We don't all have to be rock stars, but we could be a rock star in our lives, So.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And now that you mention rock stars, I remember when I interviewed Carlos Santana, he said something that it was unforgettable for me. I knew, because I do a lot of research on my guests, I knew Carlos Santana came from a very humble family in Mexico, a dysfunctional family. And I also knew that he had been sexually abused when he was a child. So when he gave me the interview and we had the pleasure of going to his private studio in Las Vegas, I knew that the very first question I wanted to ask Carlos was, at what point did you realize you had what it takes to become a rock star? So I went there. I went to his studio. He's so humble. He was very welcoming. And so I had a chance of asking him the question that I wanted. And I said, Carlos, at what time did you realize you had what it takes to become a rock star? And in a very Carlos Santana-esque cool way, he looked at me and he told me, Gaby, I was always a rock star. They just didn't know it. And that's when I realized how important it is to develop this ability of seeing ourselves not just by who we are right here, right now, and what is happening to us right here and right now, but with the eyes of potential of who we can become, who we have already inside of us, and we only have to take a look, to take a deep breath, and start doing the work of manifesting what is already living inside of us. So that was one of my favorite interviews, also from the book.
I can easily see why that is one of your favorite ones. I loved reading about that in your book too. And it's so touching. It means so much, I think, to so many people to hear that. And so thank you so much, not only for sharing your stories, but your tremendous, amazing book. I just absolutely love it. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn how to be part of the Virtuous Circle community?
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the conversation. And of course, I want to invite everybody to join the Virtuous Circle. They can follow me in all my social media at Gaby Natale. And of course, GabyNatale.com. And they can share whatever they're learning on the Virtuous Circle using our hashtag, the Virtuous Circle, or if you're reading it in Spanish, Círculo Virtuoso. So they start sharing with each other their own, how they used the book in their own way. Some people used it during the isolation time in COVID, some others through hurricane seasons. You never know how people are using it in their own lives. And for me, it's an honor to be a part of their own journey.
Well, Gaby, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thanks to you.
Well, thank you, Gaby. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, The Virtuous Circle. Restore your confidence, bounce back, and emerge stronger. The Virtuous Circle is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. And of course, it's available on Kindle, so you can download it and start reading right now. Again, if you'd like to connect with Gaby, you can at her website, Gaby, Natale.com, for more information. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.